Early winter, a perfect time to catch the bigger pikes, but it could be a hard challenge to get them interested in your bait. In this movie, I will be using a very effective method for these cold waters. I will be trolling with floaters and bait fish, and I will be doing this fishing method from a kayak, a Cuda 14 from Jakson Kayak. Why use a kayak, you may wonder? One of the big advantages with a kayak is that you can bring it and use it in almost all waters. This lake, for instance, is very difficult to access by boat, and a kayak is therefore the perfect choice. In the following minutes, I will be using and show you a very basic setup for this method. Don't forget to bring your personal floating device, especially if you're fishing on your own. This type of life jacket I'm using is stuffed with the same foam material that you'll find on special ground sheets for hiking. If you keep this under your jacket, it will not only keep you floating, it will also help you insulate some of the heat and keep you warm for a little bit longer on these cold days. A personal floating device is a very cheap life insurance if you would be unfortunate enough to end up in the cold water. Here you can see I am using a size 5000 spinning reel with a bait runner. A bait runner is very effective for this kind of fishing. It will allow the pike to grab the bait and swim away a short distance before you strike it. The bait I'm using is a small tench, between 200 and 300 gram. Sometimes a smaller bait can be more effective, and sometimes, if you're after the really big pikes, a bigger bait is a good choice. As you may have noticed, this is not a floater. When you clip this to the line and pull it, it will go out sideways, away from the kayak. This is very effective if you want to cover a bigger area, or if you are using more than two rods and you want to spread out the baits and not fish all of the rods right behind the kayak. On this rod, I have a basic floating setup. A wire with two treble hooks, a sinker, and a float. The two treble hooks that I'm using is size 2, and in this case I use a small rod as bait. The important thing that you have to keep in mind is that the front hook is hooked in the mouth and the other hook is hooked on the back of the fish. The fish head have to face towards you and the rod. Because you are moving all the time, the fish will have to swim towards you. It's not effective to put the hooks the other way, because the fish will simply swim backwards, and that will not look like a natural behavior. I use the same setup on my third rod. Two treble hooks on a wire, a sinker, and a float. The depth I am fishing on is between 1 to 3 meters. Sometimes fishing closer to the bottom is very effective, but in this case I am chasing pike that is hunting their prey up high up in the water, just below the surface or just a little bit down. One important thing to keep in mind during all your fishing is that a fish can always look up, but they can never look down, and therefore it's always better to fish a little bit higher than a little bit lower. Now, keep your reels free spooled and let the propulsion from the kayak bring your bait away from you. When you are satisfied with the distance, just simply tightening up the drag on the reel. But don't put too much resistance on the reel, because then the pike can spit out the bait if it feels the resistance. Put too low resistance on the drag, and your bait will swim away with line all the time. You will have to find a perfect balance just to keep it still when you're paddling. Everything is rigged up. The rods are in position, the resistance on the reel is right, and the bait is swinging on the right depth. You move slowly and quiet around the lake, covering every possible spot where the pike might be hiding. Deep areas, shallow banks, weed beds, and other features that might hold that special pike that constantly is on your mind. Minutes turn to hours that slowly moves by. You think to yourself, why am I out here, looking for something that feels like it doesn't exist? Then, in the middle of your thoughts, you get interrupted from the sound of the reel that signals a pike has taken the bait. It's over. The pike won this fight. All that is left now is a wounded baitfish and the terrible feeling of losing a big pike that you have chased for so many hours. Rigged up and ready to fish again, but this time your self-confidence is almost completely gone. You keep thinking to yourself, what happened? Wasn't the hook sharp enough? Didn't I set the counter-strike properly? Or was it simply just bad luck? Whatever the reason, the pike is gone, and the worst part of it all, you never even got to see it. You just felt that it was a really big fish. As the sun begins to set, you start paddle back to your car, and you feel that the lake have defeated you. But keep your bait in the water for as long as you can, because you never know when that last bite just might come.